Hello and welcome to the show.
I'm Jimmy Z and that's Darla D. We're going to talk about what now for Republicans and conservatives. The House and the Senate voted to end the government shutdown, and Obama did his victory lap. So, Darla, what now?
Wow. Well, first of all, if anyone out there is like me, you're probably sitting there, probably shaking your head, maybe yelling, screaming at the television again, and wondering what are we going to do? How are we going to get this country back? Because that's really the major concern I know for all the conservatives that I deal with every day. And we have to just press on. We have to continue working toward replacing the people that don't do the job we put them there to do.
Well, and I'm going to tell you something that some people are going to disagree with, but that's part of my trademark, I guess. And I don't mean to be disagreeable, but job one still must be replacing Democrats with Republicans. And I realize we want to get as many conservatives in there as possible, but when you have a majority of Republicans in both houses of Congress, it gives us a much better bargaining position.
Well, that's true. And I can play devil's advocate here and say, well, if you look at this last week of negotiations, we had two factions within the GOP that were working against each other.
Right.
Do we want more of that within the Republican Party? Or do we want to push toward getting more conservatives, true conservatives in there that will stand with Mike Lee and Ted Cruz and who else, Rand Paul and these guys? Is that what we want?
I talked about this to a certain degree on my show yesterday, and one of the reasons why there are these two factions fighting it out in the Republican Party is because of the pressure they're getting from the majority Democrat Party in the Senate and from Barack Obama being president. The fact is that the Democrats control two of the three main houses in Washington, D.C., the White House and the Senate. We control the House of Representatives, but we don't have enough leverage to force the Democrats to do anything.
You're absolutely right.
All they have to do is sit back and wait. And one thing that you and I both know is that the majority of the American people cannot stand these fights and arguments and debates and all this carrying on in Washington, D.C. Most Americans, and I'm not saying this is a good thing, most Americans just want it to be over. All they say is, and you can see it on all the late night talk shows, Letterman, Leno, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, they're all talking about the fact that Americans want compromise. And all these Americans don't care if the Republicans give in on everything. They just want it over. And that's a big problem for us.
Well, you're right. And I've listened to a lot of these late night talk shows, and I've been watching a lot of the commentary coming from these different, MSNBC shows and CNN and so forth. And they're all sitting around these talking heads talking about how the Tea Party is a big problem and how the Tea Party is going to die and how the Tea Party are racist and we're anarchists and all these things. And here's the problem, though. This is what the people are hearing out there from our mainstream media, from these late night talk show hosts, because they're also getting the same news, is that that's the problem, that we're the problem. What they don't understand is the truth of what we're standing for. They don't understand that the House sent over and passed over 20 different compromised bills to settle the issue with the Senate and with the White House.
Right.
But the Senate and the White House were absolutely unwilling. As you stated, they didn't have to. They didn't have to negotiate.
Right, and so they didn't. They always said no to every suggestion. And I want to talk about something you just brought up, because people have accused the Tea Party of being anarchists for, I don't know, this has been going on for months now. And what the Tea Party is about small government, the kind of federal government that the founders intended, not anarchy by any stretch. And that is one of the most frustrating things to me, because the Tea Party and conservative Republicans are the enemy of anarchism.
Well, that's it. But see, that's the narrative that this all goes back to rules for radicals. I mean, really, truly, this is the fight that we're in. And sometimes we forget the staple, the foundation of the fight that we're in, where it comes from on the left side. And it comes from the rules of radicals, the Marxist way of doing things. And one of those things was to take the media and to skew it to where it worked in their benefit. And that's exactly what they've done. You know for a fact as well as I do that the things that were being said by Nancy Pelosi, by Harry Reid, and others about us anarchists in the Tea Party and all this stuff that we're causing all the problems and how we want Americans to hurt and all this kind of stuff is actually very contrary to the truth. But they go out there and they use it. It's their control mechanism. That's how they control all of the people to believe this. This is why people want it to be over, is because all they see is this big fight and all these people, these rich white, anarchists who are the GOP supposedly, who are causing all of these poor Americans so many problems, because that's what they're being told day and night. They're being spoon-fed this information.
So I think, and I want to know if you agree with me, I think the Tea Party does need a reboot.
Well, the question is, what do you mean by a reboot?
Well, I think that the Tea Party, this is something you might disagree with, I think the Tea Party needs to be reorganized into a national political activism organization. And by that I mean the small Tea Party groups that are set up all over the country would not be disbanded, but they would become part of a national organization in the same way that, and I'm not endorsing the Boy Scouts anymore because we all know why, but the Boy Scouts organization had a national organization that oversaw the entirety of Boy Scouts, but a Boy Scout troop locally in your neighborhood could run their troop the way they wanted to within the guidelines of the Boy Scouts. And I think that the Tea Party needs to do something similar, because the effectiveness of the Tea Party since the 2010 election has diminished somewhat, I think.
Well, okay. I hear what you're saying, and I've heard this for the last nearly 5 years, that we need to organize the Tea Party under one big tent, rooftop. And the problem with that is many of these organizations, ours included, have tried to become sort of a main hub, a main organization to help to organize and to provide a united front. But here's the problem within the conservative ranks. People don't want to do that. The organizations don't want to do that. You have these Tea Party groups, and I'm not going to mention any names whatsoever,
okay,
because I'm not here to divide right now.
No,
but
that's
let me
fine.
just simply say that the Tea Party groups either want all of the attention and all of the kudos for what they're doing individually, and they want to be the in-charge group, or they don't want to do it. And that's one of the reasons why our group, Patriot Action Network, pulled away from a lot of the national things the last few years, was because people didn't want to play together. They didn't want to get on the same bandwagon, and we all take some sort of responsibility for that bandwagon as a group. They wanted to be in control of the bandwagon, and they want everyone else to fall into line. And I'm sorry, that's not what this Tea Party movement is about.
I don't think you're the only organization that pulled back a little bit. I would argue, I'm not even arguing, I would say that from my point of just observing what's been going on, I think a number of groups have kind of pulled back, and that has affected the effectiveness of the Tea Party to where, looking back at the election in 2012, I think we had some Tea Party success in some specific elections, state and House elections in different districts across the country, but we didn't have much effectiveness at all from the Tea Party in the presidential election. We still ended up nominating Mitt Romney. So my question to you, as a powerful, I think somewhat powerful member of the Tea Party as an activist organization at whatever level you want to describe it as. My question for you is, between now and November of 2014, how does the Tea Party become as effective as possible? And I don't think there's going to be a national organization, so we'll set that aside.
Right. Well, I'm going to go back to what I've been saying since probably February, March of 2009, and I have said it numerous times from the main platform, speaking at different events, to our site and putting out messages and on our site over the years, is precinct committeeman to me, is the best way to go. And a lot of people see that as a big job and a lot of work. It's really not. It's very minimal amount of work, but it comes with a lot of perks and a lot of power. You know, a lot of people don't understand that a precinct committeeman position you have all of these precinct committeemen coming together from your state, from your county, for example, and you have the ability to, in the primary election, to decide of all the candidates who you are going to vote to push through onto the ballot. So what most people are dealing with from election to election is they show up for the general election most of the time, and they vote for the candidate of their choice at that point. But that may not have been their real choice. That may just be the lesser of two evils at that point. Mm-hmm. And they didn't have any say over to who actually got put onto that ballot. They just have a choice of who's on that ballot. If you want a choice, if you want to vote and have some decision making and who actually goes on that ballot, you need to become a precinct committeeman. Okay, how does the chances are.
Sorry to interrupt you, but how does that differ from the voters going in to vote during the primary?
Well, you're going to have a state convention. You'll have your convention, and at the convention is when all the precinct committeemen come together and they decide at that point. They put out their votes at that point as to who goes on the ballot. That's what the convention is for.
Okay, so that's going to be a number of people, not one single person.
No, it's committeemen from each precinct. But there's several committeemen. There's, depending on your precinct and size. I mean, you might have 2, you might have 7, you might have 10.
No, I understand.
From your precinct. And then all of those people are going to get together, and then they're going to vote for who goes on the ballot for their area.
Okay, so if let's say we're talking about state senator, the federal senator for a given state.
Okay.
And let's talk about Arizona, since you're in Arizona. How do the committeemen figure into the selection of who goes on a ballot during the primary?
Well, they're going to decide at that point. If you look back at 2010, they actually did this and had a lot of success. 2 states did it, but the one that comes to mind is Utah. I can't think of the senator's name, but they actually voted him off. He was going to run again. They actually voted him off at their state convention and pushed through the candidates that they wanted on. They voted in favor of those. So at the end of, when it came time for the election, he was gone. He couldn't run because the precinct committeeman actually voted him out of office. That's the power of, and it may be a little different from state to state. So I don't want to talk in specifics. Every state is a little different, just like it's not called a precinct committeeman in every state. But it's the person or persons that are in charge of their precinct. And the way you find out about that is you contact your local GOP. You can go through your state or your county and find out the information for your local GOP and go to their meetings and talk to the people in charge, the chairman of your GOP, and tell them you want to be a precinct committee person. And they'll tell you what the name of it is for that area. But this is where the true power is. And you may not know this, Jimmy Z, but actually only 50%, 40 to 50% of these slots are filled nationwide.
So slots are sitting there unfilled.
That's right.
And why is that? Because people don't even know to apply for it?
Because people don't know. Yep. And the GOP doesn't want you to know. Hello?
Okay.
See, you're not going to hear them. If you listen to any person nationally any politician, any GOP group get up there and talk, you never hear them talk about, hey, people, if you really want to make a difference in this country, become a precinct committeeman. You never hear it because the rhinos, the good old boys club, the GOP lifers, they don't want you to get in there and mess up their plans. Because here's the thing, if we fill those slots with conservatives, in our local level precincts, and they come together and vote, they can vote a lot of those yahoos out of there.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. If they know the power of the precinct committeemen, why aren't the rhinos and the moderates in the Republican Party filling those slots with people that they know are going to continue to pursue the same kind of moderate politics in the Republican Party?
Okay, let me ask you this. Is the GOP good at organizing?
Well, it's certainly not as good as the Democrats and liberals are.
Right. Well, they've done a pretty good job of filling the slots enough to get what they want. But if the people are empowered, and if they know, then they can come in there and fill the rest of those slots, and we have a real chance at changing things.
Okay, so let me ask you this. As we wind it up, do you have information about this on your website at Patriot Action?
We do. If you go to Patriot Action Network, on the front page, you'll see on the sidebar on the left-hand side, it'll say groups. And one of those groups that has a button, it looks like, a button you wear on your chest, and it says, Become a PC. You can click on that. Whether you become a member or not is not important. You can see all of our information. You just can't respond or comment on anything without becoming a member. But you can read all the information. There are links in there, and there are informations within that group that tell you information, where to go and how to get involved. But the most important thing is contact your local GOP. Tell them you want to be involved as a precinct person. Like I said, it's called different things in different states.
Sure.
But become involved in your precinct. And do it now, because a lot of the positions the positions, you're running out of time is what I'm trying to say, for this year to be able to vote in next year's conventions.
Right.
So you got to do it now.
And this is very important because of the rules changes that happened in the Republican convention, the National Republican Convention, in 2012. It was a terrible thing, and we're still dealing with that to a certain degree. And so this is going to be very important. So that website is patriotaction.net, correct?
Correct. And
my website is thejimmyzshow.com. Darla, I want to thank you, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.